Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, the two Koreas inch closer to reopening their Kaesong Industrial Complex, finalizing negotiations for a joint management committee at the factory park. As for their suspended tourism project at Mount Geumgang, Pyongyang expresses regret over Seoul's proposed October meeting. Responding to soaring prices of long-term housing rent in the country, the government introduces a set of measures to spur home buying. That includes tax breaks, lowering interest rates on mortgage loans and increasing the supply of rental homes. Plus, with reports emerging the US and its allies could launch a military strike against Syria as early as Thursday, UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon calls for more time for completion of UN inspections into the alleged chemical attack. Daybreak begins now.
You're watching Daybreak on Thursday, August 29th, and I'm Choi Yusun here in Seoul. We start with another step forward in inter-Korean relations. Seoul and Pyongyang have agreed on the specifics of a committee that will manage their jointly run factory zone in the north. As for their suspended tourism project, however, North Korea asked the South to reconsider discussing the matter at an earlier date. Hwang Sung-hee has the details.
The two Koreas have finalized their agreement on the formation of a joint committee on the management of the Kaesong Industrial Complex. An official at Seoul's Unification Ministry said Wednesday that the agreement was reached through the Inter-Korean hotline and added that representatives from the two sides only need to sign the documents now. Once the joint committee is formed, the Koreas will be able to hold meetings on a regular basis and oversee the management of the business park together. Many have said that once the joint committee holds their first meeting, it'll be only a matter of time before operations resume at the Kaesong complex. Seoul has proposed to convene a first meeting next Monday in Kaesong, although the North has not yet responded. Meanwhile, North Korea expressed regrets over the South's counter-proposal to hold talks on resuming Mount Geumgang tours at a later date than it had initially proposed and requested that Seoul rethink the matter. On Tuesday, South Korea offered to meet on October 2nd, a counter-proposal to the North's offer to hold the talks at the end of this month or at the beginning of September. However, Seoul explained that it is important to first focus on the normalization of their jointly run Kaesong Industrial Complex and to prepare for a successful round of family reunions, which are scheduled to take place at the end of next month. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
And now over to the latest on the fate of a Korean American who's been detained in North Korea for the past 9 months. A U.S. envoy is set to travel to the isolated country on Friday to negotiate the release of tour operator Kenneth Bae. Our Han Da-eun reports.
The U.S. State Department and the White House say Special Envoy for North Korean human rights issues Robert King will travel to Pyongyang on Friday to free Kenneth Bae, who has been detained in the reclusive state since November last year. During the visit, Bae is likely to be released from prison and brought back home with Ambassador King the next day. The missionary and tourism operator had been accused of participating in activities designed to overthrow the North Korean leadership by infiltrating at least 250 students into the country. North Korea has reportedly invited top U.S. officials to visit Pyongyang regarding the issue through the New York Channel, a diplomatic line set up between Washington and Pyongyang. During a humanitarian trip to Asia this week, King said the U.S. had continuously requested for Bae's release.
We've requested the North release Mr. Bae on humanitarian grounds. His health is suffering, and we've requested that we be released. We hope that they will listen to our request.
Although the U.S. envoy's talks with his North Korean counterparts will likely be limited to the issue of Kenneth Bae, experts say King's visit may help in easing the standoff between Washington and Pyongyang. This is the first visit to Pyongyang by a top U.S. official since young leader Kim Jong-un succeeded power. In fact, not long after King's last visit to the North in 2011 to free American citizen Eddie Chun, the two countries held high-level talks and discussed North Korea's denuclearization as well as food aid. And as his visit comes amid a series of inter-Korean talks, hopes are high that the elevated tensions on the Korean peninsula may further cool off. Handan, Arirang News.
And here in South Korea, with the country reeling from the worst property market slowdown since 2004, the government has announced a new set of measures designed to stabilize the housing market. But will stimulating sales help bring down skyrocketing rents? Our Park Ji-won has more.
The government's new housing plan aims to encourage home buying and to stabilize monthly rent and jeonse prices, which have been soaring in recent years. Jeonse is the unique Korean housing system that requires renters to deposit a lump sum of money that's paid back when lease contracts expire. Jeonse prices have skyrocketed recently to well over 2/3 the value of homes. In an attempt to address the instability in the housing market, Korea's Ministry of Strategy and Finance, together with the Financial Services Commission and the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, have come up with the joint measures.
The recent hikes in jeonse prices are attributed to depressed housing sales and structural changes in the Korean housing market from jeonse to monthly rent. Responding to the current problems, the government aims to stabilize rent and jeonse prices through a set of comprehensive financial measures. The government will do its best to protect the nation's lower-income earners.
According to the plan, the government will first reduce the home acquisition tax to 1% of the price of homes that are valued at less than $530,000 and to 3% of the price of homes that are valued at $800,000 or more. Potential home buyers in the lower income bracket will be able to secure mortgages at a cheaper rate in the 1% interest range. Given that current inflation rate stands in the 3% range, this is actually negative interest for home buyers. The government will also work towards supplying about 23,000 public rental housing units during the latter half of this year and offer more tax benefits for monthly renters to lessen the financial burden on people switching from jeonse to monthly rent systems. The measures come 9 days after President Park Geun-hye asked related ministries to come up with ways to stabilize the nation's housing market. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
In another directive from the nation's presidential office to boost the economy, President Park Geun-hye has called on Korea's top companies to increase their investments and hiring in return for a possible easing of corporate governance regulations. Our presidential correspondent Oh Jin-ju reports.
President Park emphasized that now is the time for companies to make active and leading investments. During a luncheon with the leaders of Korea's 10 largest conglomerates on Wednesday, President Park said that bold investments made during times of economic hardship were what boosted the sluggish economy and increased the competitiveness of Korean companies. This was the first time since taking office that President Park had met separately with the country's top business leaders, including Samsung Electronics Chairman Lee Gun-hee and Hyundai Motor Group Chairman Chung Mong-gu. She asked the leaders to work towards job creation, saying that jobs can only be created when companies have the determination to do so, not the government. The president also addressed concerns about her campaign pledge for economic democratization, which aims to create a fairer business environment so that small and medium-sized companies can work alongside large enterprises. She promised to make sure that economic democratization policies will not be distorted into something that choke conglomerates by way of excessive regulations. In particular, President Park hinted at easing some of the more controversial regulations in a revised bill of the Commercial Act, which focuses on corporate governance reforms. The president says she would carefully go over the revisions, including one that would limit the voting power of the largest shareholders to 3% when selecting a member of the audit committee. In response, the chairman of the Federation of Korean Industries, Ho Chang-soo, asked the president to listen to what the companies have to say so that they can do their best to reach their investment and employment goals for this year. Oh Jin-soo, Arirang News.
If you want the latest news from Korea and around the world.
Return to the negotiation.
President Park Geun-hye planned, given the current circumstances.
On your way to work or at home.
Defense Ministry. The legislature will convene a.
Tune into Daybreak on Arirang TV.
Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said Tuesday that the British government has drafted a resolution for the UN Security Council calling for necessary actions to protect Syrian civilians from chemical weapons. British Prime Minister David Cameron said the resolution condemns the Assad regime for using chemical weapons against civilians last week. British government officials said the resolution invoked Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, which allows military action by UN members. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says the UN inspection team currently investigating the alleged use of chemical weapons against civilians must first be given time to complete its probe. And turning to international voices on the Syrian government side, Russia and Iran have expressed concerns over the military options the U.S. and other Western countries are considering against Syria. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov continues to call for a diplomatic solution and warns that a military intervention could destabilize the country. Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Hosseini Khamenei also warns military action would escalate the current crisis even more, with violence spilling over Syria's borders. Meanwhile, Russia began evacuation of its citizens from Syria on Wednesday. The Russian Emergency Situations Ministry said dozens of Russians have been sent out of the country, with more expected to be evacuated. A newly released UN report shows Iran is getting ready to test roughly 1,000 advanced uranium enrichment centrifuges it has completed installing. The International Atomic Energy Agency says Tehran will delay until early next year, but still go ahead with the commissioning of the Arak research reactor, which is capable of making nuclear bomb material. The agency says Iran has a stockpile of 186 kilograms of refined uranium gas, but experts say 250 kilograms are needed to make a bomb. Experts also say it's unlikely Tehran could further enrich to weapons grade without being detected by the IAEA. Iran says its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes only, but the U.S. and its allies accuse Tehran of developing a weapons program. Israel has threatened to attack Iran if tough international sanctions imposed on the country fail to rein in its nuclear ambitions. And staying with the IAEA, the world's nuclear watchdog is demanding Japan stop sending confusing messages about the nuclear crisis at its Fukushima plant and explains what is happening there in detail. The IAEA wants to know why the leak of 300 tons of highly radioactive water last week warranted a level 3 on its international nuclear event scale, when no other incident had justified a rating since the March 2011 meltdown. Rubber stamping its decision Wednesday, Japan's nuclear watchdog said it had no clue how much contaminated water had leaked, how radioactive it was, or where it went. It said it may revise its decision based on information it receives from the plant's operator, TEPCO. The initial disaster was rated the highest level 7 on the international scale, the same as the 1986 Chernobyl disaster. In other news, Korean women from all over the world have gathered in the country's central city of Daejeon to participate in the 13th annual Korean Women's International Network. Our Kim Ji-yeon sent this report from the event, which runs through this Friday.
Around 550 women from more than 36 countries have come together here in the city of Daejeon for the 13th annual Korea Women's International Network 2013 to share their experiences and knowledge. Sponsored by the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, the event aims to promote women's rights by building a global network and expanding the number of women in leadership positions throughout various segments of society.
Women power and leadership are ever more crucial, especially in times of crisis. I hope the participants here can form a close bond and network for meaningful purposes.
46-year-old Kim Yoon-hee is a Korean counselor from Germany. Kim decided to participate in the event to share her experiences helping migrant women adjust to the European country. Kim, a migrant woman herself, said the event was very meaningful.
This is my fourth time participating in the event, but this year is significant. The Co-Winner Foundation decided to offer financial support for a project I'm working on, a project to build a counseling center for Korean women in Berlin.
This year, there was a special session about comfort women, or the sexual enslavement of Korean women by the Japanese military during World War II. Kim Bok-dong recounted her experiences and asked participants to help with her cause.
There are very few left. My final wish is to live in peace by receiving an apology from the Japanese government.
The Korean Women's International Network issued a statement urging Tokyo to officially apologize and compensate the victims of its wartime atrocities. This three-day event also includes a series of lectures from Korean female leaders in various fields, including science, communication, and the economy. This annual event will run through Friday. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News, Daejeon.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2013 World Rhythmic Gymnastics Championships taking place at Kyiv, Ukraine. 19-year-old Son Yeon-jae looking for her first ever medal at the event, completed her hoop and ball events as she scored 17.550 and 17.400 respectively, which is good for 34.950 points. Now more updates on her after she completes her clubs and ribbon events as well. So with that said, let's move on to some Wednesday night's KBO action. The Kia Tigers beat the Lotte Giants in a tight game 5-4 with the NC Dinos all over these Samsung Lions last night 9-1. So with that said, let's take a look at the other two games that took place, starting off with the big game between the LG Twins and the Nexen Heroes. Of course, shifting over to the game here, second inning of the game. Here's Seo Dong-wook, a lucky infield single past the pitcher, scores Kang Jung-ho, the first run of the game, and it's 1-0 Nexen Heroes. Fifth inning of the game, here's Lee Tae-gun this time, flies out to center field. This scores another, and Nexen takes a 2-0 lead. Bottom of the inning, here's Lee Byung-gyu, an RBI double to right, 2-1 Nexen. Before this next play here, Yoon Yeo's up at bat. This one scores two runners here, and LG takes the lead 3-2. We shift over to the eighth inning of the game. Here's Park Bang. Park Byung-ho drills one to deep left field. Back. Gone, a two-run shot. His 25th of the season as Nexen takes the lead back 4-3. Here's ninth inning, Son Seung-rak on the mound, strikes him out swinging. Lee Byung-gyu gone. Yang Yong-dong up next, and he strikes out swinging as well. Up next, Moon Sun-jae at bat. Here he goes, pops up to second. Ball game over. Nexen sweeps the LG Twins 4-3 as they're now tied with Tucson for third place. And next up, the Hanwha Eagles taking on the SK Wyverns. Second inning, Park Jing-man RBI single to left here makes it 1-0 SK Wyverns. Before this next play here, bases loaded, Cho Dong-hwa, and he takes the walk, and in comes the second run of the game. Third inning down 2-0. Hanwha's Lee Dae-soo sends one to left. Back, and it is out of here. A solo shot cuts the deficit to 2-1 SK. Now 6th inning, Song Kwang-min at bat, and RBI double ties the ball game here at 2-2 before Ko Dong-jin at bat, and he's going to fly out to center field. Brings home another runner, and it's 3-2 Hanwha Eagles. Next inning, Park Jong-kwon deep to right field. This one's back on the track, and it's gone. Tie ball game 3-3. Here we go in the 9th inning, bases loaded, one man out. Park Jin-man flies out to right, and in comes the runner. Ball game over. SK wins it in the bottom of the 9th, 4-3, your final score. And now with that said, moving on to some midweek K-League Classic action where Seongnam-ira Cheonma beat Gangwon FC 2-0, Jeju United over Busan 2-1, Daegu all over Daejeon 3-1, and the big game here, Ulsan topping Pohang Steelers 2-0. So with that said, let's take a look at the other games that took place, starting off with FC Seoul taking on Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. Of course, shifting over to the game here, both sides very aggressive from the start, but no goals being scored in the first half of the match as the first half ends 0-0. But in the second half, here is Kevin Orris with the shot, and he scores, and it's 1-0 Jeonbuk. FC Seoul trying to continue to press forward in this one, and in the 61st, check this out, and Daeyeon's gonna poke this one in. Finds the back of the net, the equalizer as both sides draw 1-1 after 90 minutes of play. And moving on to the Suwon Samsung Blue Wings taking on Incheon United. It only takes 1 minute for the first goal to be scored in this one here as Lee Seok-hyun pokes one past the goalkeeper, and it's 1-0 Incheon after the first minute. Now down 1-0 after the first half, Suwon Santos, he's gonna level this with a brilliant shot past the goalkeeper in the 66th, and we have a brand new match. Spoke too soon. 73rd minute, Incheon once again. Diogo this time makes it 2-1 Incheon United. Not done yet. 90th minute of the match. Here's Han Gyo-won. He's going to send this one past the goalkeeper and brings down the curtains. Another goal brings down Suwon 3-1, your final score. And now finishing things off with the second leg of the UEFA Champions League playoff match between PSV Eindhoven and AC Milan, with, of course, Park Ji-sung getting the start in this match. Now, both teams tied 1-1 in aggregate, but AC Milan tears it up in the second leg, beating PSV 3-0 with 4-1 in aggregate. So with that said, that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Happy Thursday morning to you. I'm Lee Ji-hyun with your latest weather forecast. Well, I hope you enjoyed the last of the summer weather yesterday, because today, afternoon highs in the central region will be 3 to 4 degrees lower compared to yesterday. So it will be hovering mid to upper 20s. But as we can see, we have 33 for the highest of high temperatures. Well, that will be Jeju Island because no showers are on tap for Jeju today. And as we expected, rain is on the way. The thick rain clouds have formed in the northwest and it's gradually moving down south. So it's drizzling right now here in Seoul and the surrounding area, and it should turn into heavier showers, and it's likely to rain till the late afternoon. Well, I would say until 3-ish, so make sure to have your umbrella ready. Well, we expect accumulations up to 30 to 80 millimeters nationwide. That's 1 to 3 inches and 120 millimeters for some of the Jeolla region. So it can be a washout day for some areas today. Well, most of the rain will pick up towards the evening here in the central areas, whereas down south might receive from this afternoon to tomorrow. And after all the rain goes away, temperature will stay in the upper 20s for most of the region. So we are definitely getting one step closer to the autumn. With that, let's take a look at today's reading. Now, morning lows in Seoul started off at 23, and daytime highs will only rise to 26 degrees Celsius. That's 79 degrees in Fahrenheit. And it looks like Daegu should have mostly sunny morning hours, but it will start to rain in the afternoon. And Gwangju and Busan will all hike up to 30. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju shouldn't be affected by a rain shower today, so enjoy another beautiful and hot day. And it looks like Dokdo and Mount Geumgang will all reach to 28 degrees Celsius, and it's gonna be a washout day for Mount Geumgang. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. That's all I have for you at this hour. Enjoy your morning commute, and back to Yusan in the studio.
Thank you, Jian. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Thank you for being with us.